Hey everyone, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Justin, and there it is. The 2020-2021 NHL season has officially wrapped up as the Tampa Bay Lightning have won their second consecutive Stanley Cup. Now, when it got to the last, probably about the final four teams remaining in this year's playoffs, I didn't have that one team that I really wanted to root for. So the last round or two was really an experience of just watching for the sake of watching and enjoying the hockey without any real attachment to any of the teams. And I think that I probably would have been more attached to the Tampa Bay Lightning had they not won last year. I'm not a big fan of teams going back to back, and of course there were other circumstances around the team that I didn't really want to support or cheer for. However, as the team was one game away from winning the Stanley Cup, and in that game as the time was counting down, I started to really change my thoughts about this year's Tampa Bay Lightning team and whether they did deserve to win the Stanley Cup, and they did, absolutely. Not to mention, are they the absolute hands-down best team in the NHL on paper, in performance. I didn't pick them to win the Stanley Cup this year. I had them in the finals, but losing to Colorado, which clearly was a bad pick. But the Tampa Bay Lightning deserved this probably more than anybody. Of course, people are going to bring up the whole cap scenario and everything that went into that, cheating, if you will. And that's maybe a different subject, and it's a fair one to bring up, $18 million over the salary cap. However, what team deserves to win a Stanley Cup more than a team that won probably the worst Stanley Cup to win in NHL history, in an empty building, in a bubble, with none of their fans, none of their families to celebrate with, a very difficult Stanley Cup to win last year. And so for them to do that and then have the redemption of being able to do it again the following year, where we're finally on the return out of COVID, things are getting back to normal. They've got pretty much a full building full of their fans and full of their families. They get to bring that celebration back to Tampa Bay, one that everybody had the opportunity to do from home last year, but instead in front of their fans, in front of their faithful, in front of their family. And to me, that, you know what, I changed my mind. I feel like that is a terrific storyline. I think that I personally, as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, thought, if the Leafs won the Stanley Cup in 2020, that's such a Leafs fan thing to do where, they win in an empty building, nobody's there to enjoy it, nobody's there to watch. Ultimately, we didn't get remotely close to that. That was just my mindset going into the season. But it let me think about how difficult that must have been for their fan base and for the players themselves to win in an empty building. And so for them to, like I said, have that redemption and come back the next year and be able to celebrate it in front of all their fans, I think that's a very special thing that happened. Now, I was going into this video thinking in my head that I was going to not necessarily justify the $18 million over the salary cap, because that is something that the NHL probably needs to look at and fix, because clearly it worked and clearly other teams are going to replicate it in the future. And I know the Toronto Maple Leafs have attempted to do something similar in the past, not to the same extent. However, I did want to shine light on the fact that Nikita Kucherov, even though people seem to think that he was ready 2 months prior to the fact that the season ended and he made his return in the playoffs, he had not played a single game in the regular season and came into these playoffs and played that well, and then sustained multiple injuries in the playoffs and continued to perform in that caliber. You got to give him credit. I mean, yeah, it's a difficult situation to support from the team's perspective, but for Nikita Kucherov, he played fantastic. He deserves a little bit more respect for his play. Now, I saw his interviews after. That, I think, is extremely disrespectful. I think a lot of people are going to be very, very displeased with Nikita Kucherov. He was clearly influenced by the moment and a few substances, I'm sure. But he goes on camera in a press conference and calls out Montreal's fans about how they celebrated after one win in the Stanley Cup final, acting like they had won the cup. I had said in my previous video about Montreal that I wasn't in the mindset of cheering for a Canadian team just for the sake of them being Canadian. And I still don't necessarily believe that, but if that's the mindset that players and other fans have of Canada and passionate fan bases where you can't celebrate unless your team actually pulls the thing off, that might change my mindset, because I thought that his comments about Montreal's fan base just being obnoxious was completely off off guard, completely disrespectful, and then he goes on to then disrespect the last two Vezina Trophy winners, forgetting their names and saying that they had no business winning their trophies when they had fantastic seasons themselves. I just thought that his comments in the interview, again, I understand he was in the moment. He just won his second straight cup. He's very amped up. I'll give him some benefit of the doubt, but I'm not approving his comments whatsoever after that win. I just thought it was way too disrespectful. Now, in all, of course, I want to say that usually in the NHL, the best team going into the regular season, before the season starts, that team generally does not win the Stanley Cup. The Stanley Cup is usually awarded to the team that stays healthiest and can just put together 16 wins, because that's an extremely, extremely difficult thing to do in hockey. Some teams can pull out some miracle wins. Some teams can really bond together in the playoffs. Montreal showed that they could really buy into a game plan and really work their defensive game to push them through the playoffs. But this is 2 straight years where the Tampa Bay Lightning, in my opinion, going into the season, were by far the best team on paper, by far the deepest and best built team, and 2 years in a row they win the Stanley Cup. So it's encouraging to see that the Stanley Cup is being awarded to the best team in the NHL. Again, my personal opinion. Some people have other opinions on what their best team is. Of course, Vegas and Colorado, those are 2 teams that finished at the top of the leaderboard. I thought that Colorado was going to win the Cup this year, but again, Tampa Bay deserved this Cup. They were the best team. They played extremely well. They knocked out not easy competition, some very, very difficult teams en route to this Cup. And with what they went through last year, I thought it was deserving as well. So thank you so much for watching this video and listening to my comments on that. Please click like and subscribe, because this off season is going to be nuts. There's 1 week with the Seattle expansion draft, the entry level draft, and then free agency. That's going to be a lot of fun and a very hectic week. But this whole off season is going to be really exciting. Nobody knows what to expect. Trades, signings, deals, lots to come. So if you're following my channel, I'll have lots of opinions coming up. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.